And we're live. Before we start, I want to give a very quick disclaimer this week, because so far in the show, we've had customer-obsessed leaders from some of the largest consumer-facing businesses out there, otherwise known as B2C. Our goal is to bring you the content that paints the entire picture of how diverse CX can be. And so today's episode will focus on the intricacies of CX amongst business-to-business B2B software out there as well. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome Anita, who is a customer churn consultant, researcher, author, and everything in between. The focus of today's convo is customer retention strategies, adapting feedback to software as a service, otherwise known as SaaS, and the art of customer centricity. Anita, I don't know if my intro did any justice to your background. Do you want to give a quick idea of what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you covered everything. So my official title is Chief Churn Crusher, churn being one of those key metrics to either subscription-based companies or SaaS companies, as you mentioned. So churn is when a customer leaves. The flip side of that is customer retention. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I help B2B SaaS companies increase their net profits by retaining more of their customers.
Love it. Nice and simple. So let's kick off with the sales pitch then. So let me give you a hypothetical, and then I want you to give me a 30-second pitch and how you would approach that.
Okay.
So first and foremost, imagine you've just been brought into a high growth company to advise on the importance of customer retention. You're in a room full of people that are hell-bent on the belief that new business is far more important than retaining existing business. In a 30-second elevator pitch, can you tell me why is customer retention so important to our business? Now, give me a second. I'll start the timer. Ready?
Yes.
Go.
So retention is like sitting on a revenue gold mine. When new customers come in, they're sitting on the surface just above this revenue gold mine. If you can give them excellent customer experience, so they're hitting success goals, they're getting ROI, then you can start tapping into that revenue gold, upsells, cross-sells, renewals, positive word of mouth marketing, referrals. And we know that 60 to 70% of customers will buy again because they know, like, and trust you. The problem is when customers have poor customer experience, they end up...
Time.
That was so fast.
There you go. You almost had it though, like right towards the end, and you end up with boom, problem.
So you know what? I'll just have to come back another time, and then we can fill the rest of that sentence in.
We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen. Season 5.
I love it.
Amazing. So no, I love that pitch, and that I think that shows the breadth and the scope of all of your experience that you have throughout the industry. Maybe you want to start off with some stories from what you've seen in transition from some of the B2B companies that you work with who have worked to center themselves around the customer.
So the biggest thing, which I was trying to do in that big 30-second pitch, or little 30-second pitch, is it's really around customer experience. We talk about this in customer success. A customer can be happy, but still choose to leave. If they're not hitting their success goals, if they're not seeing ROI, they can be happy with the product, but they'll walk out the door. Every time a customer walks out the door, you not only lose that immediate revenue, but you're also losing those opportunities that I tried to cram in there. You can't upsell, you can't cross-sell, you certainly are not renewing to them. You're not the positive word of mouth marketing, which we know is really important. That's why Amazon works so well. And referrals to their colleagues and friends. You lose all of that opportunity as well. Mm-hmm. So companies that can switch, and the scenario you gave me is very much the scenario I've dealt with many times over the years.
Right.
Where the focus is so much on acquisition because acquisition is tactical and fun.
Yeah.
Retention is like a marriage. It is work. It is not tactical. It's constantly changing. And what you did last week when you showed up with flowers might not work this week. And so trying to get companies to see that really, truly there is retention gold right there, but you have to mine it, and you mine it by giving customers an excellent experience. And that experience, again, is not necessarily tied to happiness. It is tied to them achieving success and seeing ROI.
I love that. I love the way you talk about success, right? As almost as a metaphor into marriage and to love. I noticed that you had a little post as well on your LinkedIn as well, which compare that, right? And everyone loves a good metaphor. Could you talk
Yeah.
about comparing customer journey and to being in love? How is that similar?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it was one of the things I noticed the more I worked with my clients and just sort of being in the SaaS world, that customers are, and the customer journey is very similar to a romantic journey. So on the one side, you have your lead generation. This is dating. It is tactical. It is fun. You're like talking to tons of people
Yeah.
and you're trying to find the one or ones that you will bring on the rest of the journey. So you've got lead gen. Then when they actually become a customer, that's the wedding. Hey, time to celebrate. Things are great. But then right after that, there's a honeymoon period. And we know that with romantic relationships, but it's also the same when people or companies buy software.
Right.
They're looking for, those promises that were made in the dating or lead gen and sales phase.
Yeah.
Are they actually going to help them with the problems they have? And this is where a customer either, the experience is great and yes, those expectations are met, or things start going south and they realize they were promised a bunch of things that aren't going to ever happen for them, or perhaps it's going to happen so far down the road that they're no longer interested. And that's the marriage piece. That is where you're starting. Now it's becoming work. You can't, it's not tactical. That's my side. Mine is the retention side. How do we keep customers longer? How do we help them find value in the products that they buy?
Right.
And again, not necessarily tied to happiness, but to success. Are they succeeding? If they are, then the happiness comes with that. They feel satisfied. They're willing to talk to other people. If those things don't happen, then you have churn, which is they stop being a customer, or in a romantic relationship, you get divorced.
Right.
And generally, once a customer churns, they don't come back. So all that money that was spent in acquiring and converting them and then supporting them, all of a sudden it's gone.
Very interesting. So you're almost a marriage counselor in a way.
In some ways I am, yes.
I love that. So you mentioned churn there, right? How do you think in general, what tends to be the key reason in terms of experience that influences, that triggers that churn?
So there are some types of churn that you can't avoid. So let's say, and it depends on the size of the company too. And I've got to say this, like enterprise and churn is very different. Their customers don't churn at the same rate as for SMB. So when you're talking,
what's a SMB?
So small and mid-market businesses. So
Gotcha.
these can be anywhere from early startup. I don't even know where the cutoff is, but 100 million or 200 million. So the one thing, if I could give one sweeping thing, it's what I touched on, and that's expectation. Right. So just think about the last, whatever download you had, software, doesn't matter, an app. And when you downloaded it, you had some sort of expectations based on either what you've heard from others, marketing, reviews, whatever. And then you get in the product and you're like, oh, well, this sucks. Like, it's not even at all what I expected, or I can't do what I wanted to do.
Right.
You're gone. You churn. You don't continue to use it. So that is at a really small level, but you can have that right up to a very big level where sales has promised all sorts of things, either features that are unavailable or the time that it takes to actually get success. And then customers are like, you know what? Our contract is maybe 3 months, 6 months, or a year down the road. We're not going to renew. And how you know they're not going to renew is that they don't have high user adoption. Right. So there's very few users that actually adopt the product, or they're not using it daily. It doesn't become part of their either workflow or their daily life. And then they just disappear. So any opportunities, again, to sell them into that retention revenue, they just go along with them. Yeah,
interesting. And so you mentioned expectations there as well as being a key facet, not even for the person working with the customer long term, but even at the start. at the very, very first touch point, marketing, sales, whatever that may be.
Absolutely.
How do you see the convergence between sales, product, marketing into customer experience and the success teams and so forth?
One of the best ways I've seen it, I'm not even going to go that side. I'm going to come from the customer success side.
Right.
If customer success can feed case studies or success stories, however you want to frame it, into sales, then they have all those different use cases that they can then show that, hey, these are our actual customers. This is the value they're getting, and their ROI, however you're going to frame it, right?
Yeah.
Where I see there are problems is when sales is relying more on marketing to get this information versus customer success. Like customer success, and for those of you who might not know what customer success teams are, they're not quite account managers. They are actually proactive. This is different from customer support where somebody's calling in, they have an issue, solve my problem. They're proactive. They're reaching out to customers when they see things like usage starting to drop. They want to find out why, what can they do to help? And they're there to guide the customer through the customer journey, particularly if the customer journey is 30, 60, 90 days long before they start seeing success. So customer success has all of those use cases. They know what the customer experience is because they've often have mapped out customer journeys. So they can feed that into sales. Sales then can help bring down that expectation then of what happens once the marriage or they become a customer. And I found the companies that are most successful have that bridge between sales and customer success, and it's pretty tight.
Love that, because you mentioned, obviously you've done this for so many years and you've seen that flow in particular work, and that's great to hear. From a customer success standpoint, and thanks for explaining exactly what customer success is. I think that's very valuable. A lot of times when you have conversations with customers, there's a lot of valuable insights that get passed, right? And a lot of those fall by the wayside. How do you disseminate some of that valuable customer feedback into the right teams, into sales, and into, kind of the relevant funnels, so to say?
There's a couple of different ways. One is a very formal way. You can have what's called a voice of customer program. And this is taking all your feedback data. So this can be from support tickets, conversations with customer success. This can be conversations from sales, like your social media accounts, like all your different channels of funneling all this information in. So that is a formal program. Often it's run by one of two teams, either customer success or marketing will often run voice of the customer. Or what you can do is choose to have monthly meetings or quarterly meetings where you bring in product, you bring in marketing, you bring in sales, you bring in customer success, and you sit down and you say, okay, mostly driven from the customer success side, this is what we're hearing our customers are saying. And not all of them are putting in support tickets. So there's things that, like you said, can fall by the wayside, because if customer success is just putting it into the CRM, then they're not, product necessarily isn't accessing that information. So cross-functional meetings like that, where that's what you speak of, that's the focus of the meeting. This is what we're hearing our customers saying. How can you use this sales? How can you use this marketing? How can you use this product? And having that clear communication makes a massive difference in, again, getting that information out, but then having a lower expectation gap when potential customers become actual customers.
Yeah, exactly. And again, closing that CX loop almost, right? Because we're communicating the information that's most up to date and most relevant.
Yep.
So you mentioned feedback there as well, Anita. When it comes to feedback in general, gathering feedback across SaaS and B2B, what's an easy, quick win for an organization with the types of questions they can ask or just feedback in general?
If you're not collecting feedback, your first quick win is just start collecting something. So I will say that first. You can go from very simple to very complex. Like voice of customer programs, there's software out there just to collect it because there's just volumes of data to get through. You can't manually do it. My suggestion is, if there's one quick win that's the biggest of all, companies that do very well. I love this saying. It's Bernadette Jiwa. She actually had a blog title with this name, and it is "Whoever gets closest to the customer wins."
Right. Interesting.
So You want to know how to do that simply, easily? Everybody listening to this can do this like tomorrow. Start reaching out and get on a call or do a video call like this with your customers and have a cadence. It can be either product doing it. If you have customer success, if you're a founder, start talking to your customers and don't just leave it open. Have a couple, 3 or 4 questions. You want to know why they bought the product. What were they hoping to get from the product? And having an idea of, if they don't, get what they're getting right now, what could you do to change that? Right. So if they're kind of on that fence, they're like, I'm not so happy with it. You can either do it. Some companies reach out weekly. So the CEO, the founder, whoever it is, or the product manager will sit down and for an hour book out and then talk to just 15 minutes. That's all it takes per customer.
Yep.
If you can do that and talk to even 4 customers a week, you will drive growth like you would not believe. Because I don't like filling out surveys, and I'm actually someone who creates surveys as part of what I do. Most people don't want to fill out surveys. But if a founder reaches out and says, hey, could I have 15 minutes of your time? And you get to share with them what you're truly thinking and feeling.
Yep.
That's a game changer right there. So that would be the one thing. Call them, get on the phone. And if you can, 2 things, I'm just going to say it quickly. One is don't try to win them over. If that is truly their feeling, let it be their feeling.
Yep.
And ask them again, what could you do to help change their opinion? And then if you want to, you can offer something at the end, a free month, a gift certificate, whatever, but don't use that as the incentive to get them on the call. Do that as a nice surprise afterwards, because it really then engenders loyalty.
I love that advice. I can tell that you've done user research and user interviews for a while.
I love it. This is my soapbox. Thank you for allowing me to stand on it and preach to the world. If you want to know, just go and ask.
Of course. One of the things actually I picked up from your profile as well is that you give a quick tip in terms of how to ask questions even. So kind of taking it a step further and saying, can you tell me more about X, right? That's something you tend to do, right?
Yeah. And you're going to have some closed-ended questions. That's a yes or no. But the biggest thing is when somebody says something, you say, oh, could you tell me more about that? But from a curiosity perspective, not from like, oh, could you tell me more about that? Because now I'm not happy that you just pointed out
2 different
something.
questions, right?
Right. That you pointed out something that I wasn't happy to hear or was unexpected.
Yep.
Going into these, as much as you can, get that curiosity hat on, and you want to just be like, hey, could you tell me more about that? Or, oh, what do you mean by success? And if they use a term, oh, I want to get ROI. Well, what does ROI mean to you? Can you tell me what that looks like for your business? And when you start asking questions like that, people will open up. They'll tell you exactly what success means. They'll tell you exactly what type of ROI they're looking for and how that ROI will impact their business. If you can just ask a couple of questions around there, again, what you will hear will drive growth, because you just take it and you put it back in marketing, sales, product, customer success, customer support, wherever you need to. And it really does change the customer experience.
The importance of a good question, right?
Yeah.
Let's dive into the quick fire 5-question round. So what I'll do is I'll ask you 5 questions and answer as quickly as you can.
Okay.
First things first, favorite example of CX outside of your industry?
It had to be with a company called Kajabi, who does learning management system.
Single biggest thing in your life that changed as a result of COVID?
Oh, like I was saying to somebody, like my periphery friends have just sort of died away. I don't speak with them anymore. So yeah, that would probably be the biggest thing.
Who's the most inspirational leader you ever worked with?
I would probably say my old boss, Bruce.
Okay, shout out to Bruce.
When I worked at the university. Yep. Shout out to you, Bruce, at the university. I would say so. He really helped mold me into the person I am today.
What's your daily mantra?
I'm looking for LinkedIn connections and seeing if I can, that's my big thing. So trying to reach 100 new connections a month, which means then I have to have at least in a week, trying to go for about, between 20 and 40 a week, depending on the week. So that's it. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. It's such a vanity metric, but there it is.
What's the one book you would recommend to the audience and why? It doesn't have to be CX related.
I'm going to grab it. It's right
Go for
here.
it. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. No joke. I'm very serious about this. It's probably backward. Can you read it?
Yeah, we can read it. We can read it. All the places
Okay.
you'll go. Dr. Zeus.
I kid you not. So this is about life. This is about entrepreneurial journey. This can be applied to anything. And so when people ask me, this is it.
I love that. You had it ready too. Just extend your arm. Good. Here it is.
Yeah, because it's sitting right there so that I can refer to it when I'm having a crap day.
I love that. All right, Anita. So let's dive into your story a little bit. I want to get to know you. I want to get to know you and how you got into where you are right now. So what would you say actually changes in your mindset when you become a consultant? How does your mindset change in that?
I think the biggest thing with consultants is I was just speaking with someone. She's been consulting for 5 years. She's done with it. She has not enjoyed it. She's looking to get back into the workforce.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, like working independently. If you like working with another person, then get a partner. I actually found that I prefer to work like this, and I have many partnerships to help grow the business. The biggest thing is it can be lonely. So you have to ride through the loneliness, and you have to ride through those really tough times when you're trying to like really dial in your offer. Yeah. So just like with marketing, you got to know who your ideal customer is, what their challenges are, how you can solve those problems for them. And then the biggest is, do they have the money to pay for what you do?
First,
is you can be a consultant all you want, but if nobody's willing to, open their wallets to you, you're going to have a really hard time having a successful business.
Yeah.
And I was just fortunate. It took time to get all those pieces together. Plus I love what I do. And so when those rough times come, I can ride through them because I'm enjoying what I do.
What's the one takeaway you would give to someone who's considering making that jump into consultancy?
I would say, so I heard this years ago, and I wish I heeded this information.
Okay.
It's going to take a lot longer than you expect, and it's going to cost a lot more. So however long you think it takes, you might get 1 or 2 clients right away, but to get to a sustainable business, double that length of time you think it's going to take, and double the amount of money it will take to get there.
Yeah.
And that's I wish I burned through a little too early.
Okay.
And, looking back and going, wow, that money would have come in handy, because I was optimistic, right, which is great. You want to have that optimism, but I didn't read the market right. And so I had a harder time selling. And that was in the past.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I've now learned, take your time and do your research. Really find out what their problems are, how you could solve them specifically, position your offer. This is what SaaS companies have to do. This is what consultants have to do. Yep. Really, really put a lot, because you get excited and you're like, oh, I'm going to be a consultant. I'm going to have a website. I'm going to be on this social media. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. Hey, right, that's wonderful, but do your research and do it well, because then when you launch, you're going to take off far faster than if you're doing a bunch of essentially marketing without having that substance and really knowing well what it is you can do to help them.
So Anita, if you had to re-enter and restart as a consultant, you kind of mentioned already in terms of some of the things to look out for. But what's the one thing you would do different?
If I'm speaking to somebody right now who has a job, really make sure you are at that point where you can financially sustain going forward, because let me tell you, the money runs out way faster than you anticipate. If you are already a consultant and you're just starting out, my suggestion is, again, to immerse yourself in those communities, really find out what their pain points are. And the second is to accelerate. This is what I've chosen to do. Pick one marketing channel. So my marketing channel are partnerships.
Yeah.
So I partner with other businesses and other consultants. And then together, that's how we grow both our businesses. Partnerships is just one. You can have affiliates, you can do referrals, however else you want to do it. But especially in the beginning, pick one, get really good at it, get that traction going, and then expand out, because you want to be on 10 different platforms at once. You want to be, you can't. One, and focus. And I made that mistake in the beginning. And so that would be my one piece of advice.
Okay. I love that. We can wrap up with that. This was a lot of fun. Thanks so much for joining and sharing some of your knowledge nuggets with the audience as well. To everyone else, if you enjoyed the episode, shoot us a follow on LinkedIn at CX Sales Podcast and keep an eye out for weekly episodes as we wrap up season 1. Till next time.
Bye.